the first keynote, and the second keynote of today is Elliot, who is going to start now. So, big round of applause, please.
I've actually forgotten everything about my slides because I listened to such a great email talk. But I do remember that my name is Elliot Massey, and I'm here to talk to you about security, and as we want to be as safe as houses. Now, I am a software engineer, if you don't know, at Holiday Extras, that company that we sometimes hear about. And there's a hashtag, which I think was compulsory placement, I'm not sure, on all our slides, and that's our HX conference for Holiday Extras. Now, I think this works right. Okay, clicker doesn't work. Awkward. So, let's go straight into it. What is security? Security is about the protecting against unauthorized access and manipulation of our things, your things, customers' things, and things that people shouldn't touch. Now let's dig into this a bit more. Now the people online will just have all the answers because I'm an old classic PowerPoint man and I love animation, and sadly you can't hear the zip, zap, clap, click and claps. So, it's historically physical. Now, we all remember having Kingston locks on our laptops, we all remember having doorbells, and we have door locks, window locks, car alarms, garage locks, garage alarms. I'm not going to bother listing them all out, but we also have server room locks and etc. And that's been what security has been for many years. But actually, security is more than just locking people out of certain rooms. It's about defining restrictions of what they should access and where they can go, and it's about defining like the boundaries of your job and the remit of your responsibility. It's also about building robust processes, because companies operate, and as much as we want to be lean, quick and fast, we need process to make sure everyone knows what they're doing consistently. And processes allow us to also have measures and learnings from what happens. Sometimes nothing goes wrong and it's all hunky-dory, but actually that is a learning in itself, that it all is okay, but what is happening that we do not know. But also you have learnings of when it does go wrong, processes enable you to actually take measured learnings and information of what happened and move on. So why do we worry about security? It's because when we start locking things down, closing doors to other people, and actually, ensuring things cannot go wrong as best as we can, it's actually Temptation by that brilliant song of that band I can't remember the name of. But actually, it becomes an opportunity for those who want to just try, who want to actually look and venture into things that they shouldn't be doing, the naughty things. And actually, it's about how do we mitigate against that. I've just got to be careful my cursor doesn't move. So, who hacks? Why? Who are these people? I'm going to go with the first classic. Remoters have spoilers. Black and white hats. Those are the stereotypes. The black hats, they're the ones who go out for malicious purposes and to get benefits and gain from what they do. The white hats are the stereotypes who actually go out and fix things, look for vulnerabilities, and as they go about to try and better the world. That's very large. We also have script kiddies. I'm not talking about children, but actually these are people who just go out there. I call them users. They are the ones who take what other people make, especially black hats, and use it to further their own gain. But actually it's just they're not making things themselves. You also have grey and red. This is where I didn't even know all this stuff. But grey hats are actually the bunch who, I'm going to have to read my notes for this one. They tend to just operate and do hacker things, is how I'm going to summarise my notes. They don't do it for their own gain. They don't do it for criminal masterminds or malicious needs. They just want to do hacker things. So they just go about and hack. Red hats are actually, I'd say, the most aggressive form of white hats. They go out and actually attack black hats and the script kiddies to make sure rather than they're just help fixing the world, they're also blocking. And then lastly, green and blue. These aren't pills you take, but actually green hackers are just noobs. That's the summary, that's all I could find on the internet. Green hackers are noobs. They aspire to be full blown, but they are just noob. Blue hackers I wasn't sure about this one. Blue are actually, they're revengeful script kiddies. I don't know what that means. Have they been spited in the past? Don't ask me a question on that because I might have to Google it. Now, do I have any notable examples? Because all of that means nothing to us. Actually, Kevin Mitnick, he is a teenager back in the 1980s, and he spent a lot of time hacking companies for their software manuals and hardware. That was it. That's all he did. He was one of those guys who just hacked things for the joy of it. But his most notable hack was actually when he hacked NORAD, and that gave him prison time. Obviously. Post that, he actually did hack Packard Bell's voicemail service, and that's all my notes say on that one. So actually, there you go, statement. But one key thing to note about this man is that he never abused or exploited the data he accessed. It was always just to prove that he could do it. Next one, Adrian Lamo. In 2001, he hacked and altered content on Yahoo. He would often do the hacks and actually advertise to the world and the victims and the press that he had done it, he had changed, he'd made these false claims. And he would actually go to the extent of cleaning up after his, I'm not going to say that, his business, and actually solve the security issues for people. He was called the homeless hacker, who was only arrested, as he travelled America, he had no base. He was arrested because someone stole his antidepressants, and he had to call the police for more. Then the last one, the most mysterious of them all, Astra. I'm going to say genderless for this one. We don't know who they are. They have been arrested. There are theories that in 2008 they were a Greek mathematician. They claim to have attacked the Dassault Group, who I didn't actually bother looking up, but they did research and sell weapons data. And their hack, which this person went on to sell to other people, actually went to have $360 million worth of costs to that group. So why do people attack others digitally? And some of those notable examples would give you a hint. First one is enjoyment. They just like doing it. They want to do it. It gives them that adrenaline, endorphin of like they've leveled up in the newest RPG. Criminal gain. They want to benefit themselves. They want to get other people's stuff. They want money. That's usually the foremost. They want to disrupt and prove, and this is a big thing. They want to prove that there is a vulnerability, there is something there. They want to show to the world that they can do this attack, they can do it, and usually it hopefully comes tied with a fix. And then lastly, it's to make a statement. Now this one's most commonly with ethical or moral attacks, like Ashley Madison. That was by a hacker group who wanted Ashley Madison to stop operating in their market, and when Ashley Madison said no, they released their data. So what can they attack? Very broadly terms, I'm pressing my keyboard and not my mouse. Infrastructure, they can attack everything that has an open port to the web, in theory. They can attack servers, they can attack your routers, they can attack your fridge or kettles. They can attack a company or person's brand and image. Every part of fake news, misinformation, or simply exposure of data can affect someone's brand and image. Data and property, as we saw from a few examples, they sometimes attack to steal intellectual property and someone's data to do with whatever they want. And lastly, sadly for us, the customer. Every attack they do is for the customer. The customer is impacted, whoever they are. So here's some statistics. I bundled these up because I didn't have enough and I thought I'd give them into like a little nice package. But 60% of hackers thought that social engineering was the fastest way to pwn a network. This is from the Thiotic Black Hat 2018 Hacker Convention, and that's it. Next one was, lighten it. 50% of hackers deemed password reuse as the most exploited behaviour. Interestingly, with 20% each, password USB drives and public Wi-Fi was also the next best thing to attack people with. So what is social engineering? These are attacks that use or come via human interaction. They are there to take advantage of your misjudgments and your basically the unknown of how things actually work. They are psychological tricks that usually come coupled with extensive research and preparation in the person or company. So what are the methods involved with social engineering? Sorry, remoters. Baiting. This is where you lure victims into a trap and you take advantage usually of greed. And the best examples of this are, you have won $1 million, send us your bank details. I have $4 million of gold that I need to send to the UK. Please send me all your passport information. Next one is scareware. This is actually where you have legitimate looking fake adverts or alarms. Usually on a page or mocked up to look like Microsoft because the unknowing user will deem it as true. Pretexting is when you pretend to be someone who you aren't. It establishes and abuses trust. And usually, commonly, this is like bank mimics. When I'm your bank, please call me back. That type of stuff. And then lastly, phishing. This is where you abuse the sense of urgency, where you suddenly get that mysterious email from Gmail saying, oh, do you want to reset your password? Click here. And then you click it, but actually, rather than going to Gmail, you go to the spammers, scammers, or hackers' website. So, do I have any examples of social engineering attacks? Yes. So, first one. North Korean hackers targeted a Chilean bank. Wow. Oh, December 2018 this happened. There was a bank that managed and interconnected all the ATM machines in the country. An employee thought, I will change my job now, and looked on LinkedIn and found a very nice job and company to work for. This company was actually a front for the North Korean hackers. They set up a Skype interview in Spanish. I was quite intrigued. And actually, during that interview process, the employee, downloaded an application that would generate them a simple application form. It was called applicationpdf.exe. What this actually did was open up ports and install malware on the employee's computer, which then allowed further downloads of PowerShell scripts. That's what my notes say. Next one, Democratic National Email Link. Well, we all know about the alleged Russian hack in June 2016, where thousands of emails and attachments were spread out because of their Russians. But actually, the interesting point is it happened again in July. But actually, this was from their Gmail accounts, where they then released, rather than the 20,000 emails, the 1,500,000 emails. Now, this was an example of spear phishing because some of the employees had just, as I alluded to earlier, had just been sent a password reset for Gmail, and they used it, and they typed in their current password, which meant hackers then could lock themselves out. So what does this ultimately exploit? Trust. Sadly, this is the root cause of most security threats, is trust. People assume how things work. This is what they know of how things work. But when things start looking the same, but actually behind the scenes operate differently, how does the user know? It takes use of our assumptions and working processes. How can we mitigate against this? We have to define what a baseline of secure is. We have to ensure that people start not doubting how they work, but have a sense of doubt when things come out the blue or unexpected. Did they not ask for that? When things are not required or expected? Do the standard things as every new startup Holodextras does. Enable multi-factor authentication. Do the basic steps to stop it from just being a password entry into your account. And if it is too good to be true, that someone does want to give you $4 million in gold, I wish. But how can I do this? Well, actually, don't be scared to be cautious. Don't worry that what it's going to make you look like. As a company, we took a measured approach to everything we do here, and actually in your personal lives, because we do care about you as well. But we have established experts in the company. We have guilds and groups that you can go to. We try to be as open as transparent as we can be. And the main point is, regardless of whether you've been hacked or not, communicate it early. So, who wants to know about this sentence? I've already been told it was grammatically incorrect because the capitalisation was a bit off in the title, but actually, it had nothing to do with this talk. I just wanted to catch you in, and then I realised it was a keynote, so you're all here anyway. But actually, interesting fact with housing is that phrase actually came from Victorian England, where when people were investing in railway company shares, the market was a bit unstable, so they thought, I'll do something with my investment, I'll put it in brick and mortar, because that's a reliable investment, there's always going to be brick and mortar. So that's where the phrase comes from. We're meant to be solid, safe and secure with money. It wasn't meant to be a dramatic link there. But it does make you wonder about our houses. Are they truly secure? We spent decades looking at physically securing what we have, ADT alarms, brand in the UK, and etc., like stuff like that. But actually now that our homes, not just ourselves, have gone into the digital world, we've got smart locks, smart doorbells that ring you every time someone walks past the house 40 metres away. You've got smart homes, you've got a kettle, you've got a toaster, and actually your car is smart now. So how can we step towards achieving consistent security? By defining it. I'm just pretending that interrupted me. You define security. You ensure that actually security isn't assumed. It's not actually there as a presumed service of the wider company. You define it as a feature. By defining it as features, you ensure that when it goes through the process of the company, through development teams, it actually goes hand in hand with what the expected work, how it's meant to work. I did not finish that sentence very well. How it's meant to work. Just go with that. So, why should security be discussed like a feature? Because it becomes the focal point. It's not just, a lot of things are, we'll let the development team or the wider company, web team, to figure it out. Let's just define how it works. But actually, the earlier you bring security in as a focus, you actually have it as a focal point, because a lot of the time security features and requirements affect directly what the behaviour of that feature will be. And it gets the ball rolling. It allows for accessibility for all. It increases the scope and exposure of what security requirements can be. It enables people to understand, regardless of whether it's not their discipline or not, what's required. It's, rather than development teams constantly having to think up how security will work, it's actually a case where they can consider it in what they design. And it allows for accountability. This isn't blame game. I'm not blaming you if you didn't think about this, but it might be. But actually accountability enables know where, as I go back to that measures and learnings, know when the question was asked, how it was asked, what was said about it. The earlier we discuss it, the history we have of knowing when it was discovered, what did we learn, what did we not cover. Do I have an example? Yes, of course. First American was an insurance broker in the US. It's giant. It made last year $5.7 million of revenue. It's got 18,000 employees. And then one real estate developer went to a security expert called Creeds on Security, if you know them, and said, "Oh, I've been sent this email, and I think it's a vulnerability. I think it's a problem. It concerns me." What was it? This is redacted. I didn't do it myself. It was already redacted. Whoops. The email they'd been sent had a document link, and it was see your document or whatever it was. But that link was the vulnerability. And the problem here is it exposed 885 million documents to the web, accessible by all. This data contained wire transfers, bank account information, customer, buyer, seller information, all exposed for an undefined amount of time. How was this? It's because the URL only differentiated documents with a number. Sequencing, and this is the lowest number that they found before the vulnerability was fixed. 75 of 885 million documents. And the problem here is that there was no check and balance of no ensuring that customers weren't able to access other people's documents, and the fact that it was open, exposed to the world. So, the resultant impact of this? Well, they did apologise, and they did actually fix it on the day that it was reported. But actually the concern here is that we all take away, regardless of what the impact was, regardless of what exposed, actually the fact that it was unknown. No one knew it was like that, the company didn't know it was like that, and we don't know for how long. So how can I define security myself? As I said earlier, it needs to be a requirement. It needs to be a point that we discuss as early as we can, because if we allow security to be part of the vision, scope and development of a concept or feature, then we can ensure it's a consideration and it's recorded for all. You can start early. The moment you hear a thing, start thinking that question of, What could go wrong? Where are the edge cases? But of course we know edge cases might not actually be edge cases in production. Where are the remits and boundaries that I need to know of? What could go wrong? Just like how features define work, so should security. When discussing a feature, define its behaviours and concepts around it. Define what it's going to impact, define what it's going to affect. And by defining these earlier, you can ensure that all the security trends, the right groups, the right people can be incorporated into that design process. Here's an example, and this has no relation to anyone's work here. I just thought, I know that. As a customer, when I receive an email confirmation, I myself can only access it. And I think this as just, if you think of how such a short user story as part of an expected behaviour, this is one extra line has actually added early on an expectation on all teams involved of how it should behave. You start to ask the questions of what should it do if you aren't allowed if you aren't that person to access that confirmation email. It opens up. I did actually practice with this slide there a lot, and then I realised it was a duplicate. So I have been saying the same stuff in my practices, so we can skip that slide. So how can we enshrine security? And I'm trying not to go too religious or higher being, but actually, I mean, it's a shame there's no doors here, but it's with governance. We need to be able to ensure that we have this not scary red tape bureaucratic process, but it's actually enabling us long term to know what has happened and what will happen. How can governance help? It ensures that we control what we own. When teams in the web team are given services and features to control, they are given to us as ownership items. The more we know about how they work, the more we know about their edge cases and scenarios, we understand the impacts they can have. It's also about gathering an understanding of what you manage, because this is slightly different to what you own. It's about controlling the evolution of a service or a piece of work, or how something behaves. Once you know what you own, and you can actually control the evolution of a service, and you can understand where it came from to where it is now. Just got a Flash player update. Someone doesn't update this computer very much. Knowing who and what your suppliers and consumers are. In a world where, as we break large things apart and we try and get efficient and optimal with what we have, every change we do has an impact on another service. Like, for example, and I'm not picking them out, as we move towards a data pipeline of events and etc. Data team. Oh, sorry, Mark, over there. I was pointing at you guys over here. What actually that is the changes you do have real-time impacts, and actually by understanding what those impacts can be, you can ensure that at least again that can be part of your consideration. And why should we do this? Because it enables assessment of work to be done, of the work that has been done. You historically know, just trying to keep it on time, what you have. It enables you to plan the evolution of a service, work to be done, bug fixes, understand who you're going to affect. You can also attain measured reactions. So if you know how the system behaves, the expected behaviours and such, you can go back to that having robust process and understanding. You know what you need to do to react to that service, to lock it down, to secure it, what the impact of it was. Quick, skip past this. This was another duplicate. How can we do this here? We do this with communication early, because it's not just the development team that need to think about security. It's also about the stakeholders. When they define their visions, their missions, their goals, their projects, they need to know the impact or potential impact of a service or thing. It shouldn't just be up to one engineering team or the web team itself. They need to know and think, take it as part of their process of defining and vision. The wider business needs to know the impact and work. We do daily work that affects the call centre here on the extras. We do daily work that affects our customers. We always need to keep them in play for us. And of course, we need to utilise the resources and expertise around our company. The best people are the ones who you ask for help. So, this is not a statistic. It's not 50% just done badly. How can I get help? by preparing my slides, I guess. If you are ever in need of security help, if you ever have a doubt, concern, advertise early to the right people, or not necessarily the right people, but just to people who are here to work with you. We don't judge anything. We want to help you and protect ourselves as well as you. We have the help desk team, the out of hours team, some other security teams. There is a guild. So at Holiday Extras, in Slack, we have guilds. They are there to highlight expertise. Use them, because they are there to help others and ensure that we are consistent with how we work. Thank you. I've managed to get it into 25, that was my goal. But thank you everyone. Any questions? James.
So with the governance part, I think that's quite a large thing to tackle, as if there needs to be a culture shift moving towards that. But what do you think is one small thing that, say, starting on Monday, if everyone started doing, it would help move towards that? And any questions from people?
Thank you, James. So James's question from the data team, that guy. His question is, governance is a large, I'm going to paraphrase, correct me if I'm wrong. Governance is a large topic to tackle, but actually if I could have one thing or a thing that I could suggest to people to take away and start acting on Monday, what would it be? And I think it's that thing, for me, if you want to step towards a lean and an agile governance, because as we know, governance can sound scary, but actually it's the transparency, knowing that you don't have to hide things, you don't have to worry about what people are thinking. It's being able to say and advertise early, because governance ultimately for me is historically maintaining state and knowing what is happening, and they use the phrase accountability, but actually it doesn't always mean blame game. It's just knowing what happened. So by actually, if on Monday you ever had a concern, wish, wanted to know, how does this work, comment early, know what you can do. And I know that's not really an action anyone could do on Monday, because I don't want suddenly a flood of messages, oh Elliot, how can I fix this, how does this work? But it's as you said, it's a culture shift. It's a change that we all have to be, and we are all in some ways, we all have personal lives we want to protect, but actually it's just that switch of mentality. Any other questions? None.
So, as a role that can't directly influence our code and decision making around security practices, what advice would you give people like the people in agile coaches, our content guys, etc., that are in sort of non-technical roles, if you like, to help us move towards that? So,
the thing is, security isn't always technical. It doesn't have to be technical. It doesn't have to be what CSP thinks. That recently came up in a guild security thing. I can't remember what CSP stands, but it's something technical. It's the thing that, if there's any minor takeaway I'd want people to have, is that security needs to be baked in early. And I think anyone can ask the question of, what is the impact of this to customers? What is the impact of this to the data pipeline? Do we need to push that up there? It doesn't have to be a technical question. It can be the fact that just by asking it, you're helping us have that shift to being more aware in the work we do. So I think for agile coaches, that's the step that we take, is encouraging that shift. I know there's a big thing, I'm going to use the phrase, shift left. That's our big approach at the moment, but actually shift forward. I'm coining it, shift forward. Think security, shift into first gear, or third, because that is forward, or drive if you have an automatic. So yeah, I didn't repeat that question, but actually the question was, for non-technical people, what would be the advice for them to progress towards a common security goal? I did have one question, if there's no hands up, and that was from Tom Vance in the orange beanbag. I think it was, or one of you, maybe Sam.
What does the C stand for?
C in my name. C. What does it stand for? Is it a mystery word? Is it coda? Is it... No, I'm not going to say charlatan. But actually, it's actually Childs. And I think Harry said it. Childs. Boom. Don't have any sweets to throw at you. But yeah, my middle name's Charles.